What's up, everybody? Welcome into Tom Curran's Patriots Talk podcast, joined as always by the indefatigable Senator Phil Perry. We got some stuff to get into today, Phil. We're going to get into end-of-year awards. I'm lucky enough to have one of those 50 AP votes, but that privilege also comes with great responsibility, and I like to consult my people on these types of things. And Phil, you're going to be the first one I consult. So
I'm honored.
We're ready to get into it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's get into it. And let's start with the one with local interest. It's going to be the Offensive Rookie of the Year. There's two candidates, Phil, really. It's Mac Jones and Jamar Chase, wide receiver, Cincinnati Bengals. And I have maintained for a long time that any end-of-year award where a quarterback is involved requires the quarterback to get all ties going his way because he handles the ball more, because it rests on him more. So in order for a quarterback to be unseated for an MVP by a position player or anything like that, or Offensive Rookie of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year, that position player who's non-quarterback has to go off the charts. I think Jamar Chase has done it in the last 2 weeks. I'm probably going to go Jamar Chase with my vote. Phil?
So I wouldn't fault you for going there with your vote, and I wouldn't fault anybody for going with Jamar Chase with this vote, because he has been remarkable in certain pockets of the season. To me, though, I wonder if, and I understand the games do mean more as we get later into the season. And so again, weigh those a little bit more heavily if you want, but he's had stretches, Tom, where he really has been unimpactful for them, including in some losses. And so for me, the discussion is, okay, clearly because of the positions they play, Mac Jones is more important to his team than Jamar Chase is to his. And Mac Jones has been good. He hasn't been great, and he lost a couple of important games again late in the season, so you weigh those heavily. But man, to me, you look at a number of different metrics, he's right. He is right just a smidge above average in just about every single like category at that position.
I kept scrolling through the different whether it's yards, attempts, TD interception, there's a lot of different metrics you can use, but just those kind of baseline measurements of what you see on the field. He's about 12 or 13 all the way down the line, better than the Teddy Bridgewaters, better than the, obviously better than the Trevor Lawrences, but better than Jared Goff's. So he has been
Carson Wentz, Russell Wilson. He's been better than Russell Wilson this year. He's been better than Matt Ryan. A lot of guys that Matt Ryan's people have respect for.
So he has been a good starting quarterback in his first year. The reason I say Chase and the reason I changed it now is in two gotta-have-it games in the last 2 weeks for the Cincinnati Bengals, Jamar Chase has gone for 7 and 125 against the Baltimore Ravens in a must-have win for the Bengals in their division. And the other day he went 11 catches on 12 targets for 266 with 3 touchdowns. He leads the NFL in yards per catch. At over 18, he has 13 touchdown receptions, 79 catches for 1429. And the Cincinnati Bengals are a team that is headed to the playoffs. Yeah, in large part thanks to Joe Burrow, but he has needed somebody to lean on. And it is a traditionally shit team that has gotten outstanding play from that position and those two players. And as a result, I think that level of outstanding play has resulted in. And it does matter how Mac played in the 3 weeks prior to this game against Jacksonville. Quiet in the most important win of the year against Buffalo. Not his fault, sorry, but still it reflects things. And then against both Indianapolis and Buffalo in the rematch, he wasn't that great.
He wasn't. And so I agree with you, Tom. And honestly, I'm not sure where I would go. I might vote for him too. And this is, we don't want to put too much into the numbers here, but this is what we look at this time of year with this sort of stuff, right? And you just look at Jamar Chase's game log. He was outstanding for 6 games. Outstanding for 6 games. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games in a row where he has 52 yards or fewer. in the middle of the season. And, you know, again, it's 6 games of at 100 or way over 100 at times, or nearing 100, 97 against the Lions. So, you know, he had one catch on 4 targets for 3 yards in a game where they really could have used him. They ended up winning, but it was a 15-10 game at Denver. You know, they lose to the Chargers a few weeks ago. On 8 targets, he has 5 catches for 52 yards. So,
and that's the conversation too about wide receiver versus quarterback. You can't
that's
have a day where there's 8 plays that you're involved in as a wide receiver, and compare that to a quarterback who's going to have the ball 50 or 60 plays.
Right. So that to me, and I just looked at, I remember looking at it at the beginning of the season too. Part of this is probably selfish on my part, Tom, because I predicted Mac Jones would win Offensive Rookie of the Year this year, because I thought the Patriots would win a bunch of games and make the playoffs, which they have. And he's been a slightly above average quarterback in so doing. And I think usually that's enough to get you that award. And our guy, Tucker Boynton, who is great with the next level sort of analytical stuff for people that are interested in that. You know, you compare Mac Jones' season to Justin Herbert's season or Dak Prescott's season several years ago, and he's right there with those guys.
Yep. And that was the thing, is Justin Herbert against Justin Jefferson last year. And I went with Justin Herbert in large part because of the volume of numbers. I mean, I think he had 31 touchdowns and 13 picks. Now, Mac has been way more productive than I think people really understand as a thrower in terms of yards. He's approaching 4,000. Not going to get there. I think he's like at 35, 40, 21 touchdowns, 12 picks. He's thrown the ball almost 500 times. He'll throw the ball more than 500 times this week. No, not this week. He will crest 500 attempts.
That would be a record.
Yeah, no, he would. It would be it'd be a long game too, Phil. I'll tell you that. But he has been more productive than I think people anticipated him being. When we talked about 10-2, and he has to be Brady in 2001, we were right about that. But he has thrown the ball more capably, I think, than we anticipated. He has had more of those 40 attempt games than we thought he was going to. Beginning with the first game of the year, threw it 39 times. So this is not besmirching Mac Jones, but this is saying, look, he had a solid season. And to me, at this point, if you ask me right now, I would say Jamar Chase has had the better year. So we're going to move on because, like I said, I love these conversations. And we have a Dolphins game that we're going to hit with Matt Castle later in the week on the Patriots Talk pod. Phil will have his next Pats pod. But I want to go through these other awards because they're always good conversations. And I have Aaron Rodgers edging out Tom Brady as the most valuable player. The reason, similar to the reason Mac Jones is going to be edged out by Jamar Chase. It's how he closed. And down the stretch this year, since Halloween, Brady's got 19 touchdowns and 9 picks. His team's lost 3 times. Aaron Rodgers has thrown the ball ridiculously well. He's got 20 touchdowns and 1 pick, and his team has lost 1 game he was involved in. I think he was out for post-Halloween with the COVID. I didn't check the date on it. Obviously, he missed a game with COVID. But it's been absurd. His performance has made it undeniable if Brady is his closest competition, and I do think he is his closest competition.
I think he is too. I think the argument for Brady is that he has been almost as impressive with less. And we don't think of Brady as having less, but he has. I mean, Chris Godwin has been in and out of the lineup. Mike Evans has been in and out of the lineup. We know Antonio Brown has been in and out of the lineup, as has Rob Gronkowski. They've just dealt with so many injuries on both sides of the ball, that team, that I think, you know, to a certain extent, there's been a little bit more on Brady's shoulders than there has been on Rodgers' shoulders in Green Bay, because he has Devontae Adams, because their defense has been pretty good and pretty consistent all year. I mean, look at what that Bucs secondary is dealing with, and it's amazing. They've won as many games as they have. They've been dealing with massive injuries in the secondary since we saw them in the first month of the season. So I think that's really the only argument. I don't know if there's a single number that you could look at where Brady surpasses Rodgers. You know, Football Outsiders would have 1 or 2. I think they really have valued highly what Brady has brought to them this year, the Tampa Bay Bucs. But I'm with you. I think Rodgers is probably going to end up winning this thing in a landslide.
Coach of the Year is a tough one. because there's going to be sentiment for Zach Taylor in Cincinnati, sentiment for Matt LaFleur in Green Bay, sentiment for Cliff Kingsbury, although he's faded a bit. Bill Belichick deserves some consideration, but to me, it's Mike Vrabel. His team has the number 1 seed right now. They just ass whipped Miami the other day. They have had 88 players, an NFL record, 88 players on their roster this year. And they are the number 1 seed, as I said. They've made it through without Derrick Henry. There were stretches without A.J. Brown and Julio Jones. And yeah, they didn't look great during those, but they kept their heads above water, and they are the number 1 seed in the AFC. So to me, Mike Vrabel will be the NFL Coach of the Year when I submit a vote.
I think you're spot on. It comes down to that number. The fact that they've had to move as many bodies in and out of their lineup as they have. And they secured that record weeks ago.
Yep.
They set the record. So this has been a team that has just been absolutely battered by injury. And to lose Derrick Henry in particular, he is the one running back in the league, Tom, maybe there with Jonathan Taylor, but I still hold him in higher regard. He's the one running back that you look at and say, ooh, I could understand it if their season just totally fell apart right now, because he was their identity. I remember talking about this at the time. I thought the Titans were done when they lost Derrick Henry, because without him, you just can't be the same kind of offense. And it means Ryan Tannehill is probably less effective. Julio Jones, A.J. Brown, all of a sudden there's more attention on those guys, and the passing game gets much, much more difficult to execute. But the fact that he has kept them where they are without Henry, and they have a very clear identity. I already respected Mike Vrabel. I gained even more respect for Mike Vrabel based on what the Titans came to Gillette Stadium and did to the Patriots, just fighting them. That was a physical game, and they had no business even being in that thing, and they were for the first half.
It's funny too, because there is a component to righting the ship in the season as well. You come to New England and you have a competitive game, you rip off a run before halftime to keep the game, interesting. And then you get blown out in the second half, as you should with the guys you have on the field that day, but you still have to make sure that the team doesn't melt. And they didn't. They've returned to where they were and playing really well. Phil, instead of me giving the next 2 opinions and where I'm heading, I want to hear who you have for your offensive player of the year and defensive player of the year. And this is where you can get into and away from the value of quarterback versus just straight production. That's what I've always tried to do with this vote. Valuable player can mean something different, and it's almost always going to be a quarterback. When we get into offensive player of the year and defensive player of the year, I like standouts.
Yep. I think Jonathan Taylor is the clear standout on the offensive side. I look at that team and that quarterback, especially, and understanding that Carson Wentz is still not a very good quarterback. For them to be not locked into the playoffs, but to be a team where if they were to get in, you wouldn't really be thrilled to play them. That to me it's like 90% because of Jonathan Taylor. And I understand what he does is a lot of what, is based on a lot of what is done by his offensive line. But to me, this would almost be a joint award. You'd give it to Taylor, knowing that offensive line deserves some recognition for what they've done this year too.
It's so outsized too. I mean, he's handled the ball 317 times on the ground. That is 25 times more than Joe Mixon. But he's produced 1,734 yards, 5.5 yards per carry, which is an insane total. 18 touchdowns to 13 for Mixon. And the other guy in the conversation, Phil, is Cooper Kupp, who has had somewhat of an equally lopsided season against the field at the running back position. Again, Jonathan Taylor, though, I pointed out the carries. He's 500 plus yards ahead of Joe Mixon, who's second in the NFL in rushing at 1,205. So then you look at Cooper Kupp. He's the other guy who he's going to get hosed if people are doing this the way Phil and I envision it. He's got 138 catches for 1829 and 15 touchdowns. But still, that's 138 catches to 317 carries and still maintaining a 5.5 yards per carry average. Phil, your Cooper Kupp thoughts?
Yeah, well, one guy's carrying his offense and the other guy is at times. But if Cooper Kupp goes down, the Rams have enough there that they can run something and be relatively effective. I don't think the Colts can without Jonathan Taylor. He's it gets back to that value question, but in terms of the value that he has to his team, to me, it's not close. As great as Cooper Kupp has been and as important as he is, it's Taylor to me, and it's Taylor pretty easily.
500 yards more than the next most rushing
yards. That's a Derrick Henry kind of season. I mean, he just had what Derrick Henry has done the last few seasons at that position, which is be the clear-cut number one guy in football and kind of breaking the mold when people like myself say you can always find a running back, because you can, but you can't always find a Jonathan Taylor. You can't always find a Derrick Henry. After those guys, then we can argue, but man, the value he's brought to that team has just been immense.
Defensive player of the year feels like it's turning into a layup, especially after TJ Watt's performance last night, where he's on the cusp of breaking the sack record. Myles Garrett in the mix. I mentioned Matt Judon a few weeks ago. He's done a slow fade. Micah Parsons, who I said, okay, fine, he'll have defensive rookie of the year, has been on the ascent, actually. And I think he would be your 1A to TJ Watt, but feels like TJ Watt to me.
So it wouldn't fault you for putting your vote in with TJ Watt. It looks like he might break the sack record. And in the number of games that we would not even have to entertain a discussion about any kind of asterisk or anything like that, because the guy was hurt and missed time. And so he's going to potentially break the sack record Michael Strahan has had for a long time that was given to him by Brett Favre.
To beat out
Despite
Mark Gastineau.
It's right.
Do yourselves a favor, guys. If you think Mark Gastineau is a cartoon, and he kind of was, just Google Mark Gastineau. It's Gastineau, and just watch how fast that maniac got off the line. It was obscene. And he came out of some tiny college in Oklahoma or something like that. But anyway, back to live action. TJ Watt, Phil.
Tom, we talked a lot of Mark Gastineau this past offseason with Connie Carberg. Scout for the New York Jets found him at the Senior Bowl, of all places. They needed a late replacement. He was that guy. Imagine if that had never happened. I don't know. Strahan would have been breaking somebody else's record, I guess. He was that guy. I think Aaron Donald has to be in the discussion. Right. I think we're getting there with Aaron Donald, where he's so dominant every single year that people just want to go. It's not that, because TJ Watt, again, he's having a remarkable year.
It's like Charlie Moore with the Sports Emmy Award. I mean, I'm trying to get just some Charlie Moore Emmys for quick slants. He's just okay. We can't get a Charlie Moore again.
Right.
Go ahead.
Right. So to have some sympathy on the rest of us and just spread the wealth. But he's been so good this year. I mean, you look at the pressure numbers. He is second behind only Max Crosby in terms of pressures this year. He's got 84, which is compared to TJ Watt. TJ Watt is 56. So a lot of TJ Watts are sacks, obviously. But Aaron Donald from the interior, where he's almost always getting double teamed. And again, TJ Watt deals with his share of double teams too, but it's really easy to double team a defensive tackle as opposed to an outside linebacker. From the interior, be so disruptive. Man, he's having another really dominant season. He's one of the best in football at what he does. And I would think about putting my vote in for him.
It does matter to me too where your team is going, and the Steelers are kind of on the outside looking in. They might make the playoffs. It won't be due to the ineptitude of their defense, but offensive rookie of the year. Offensive player of the year, defensive player of the year. If you're a part of a defense or an offense that is not going to be in the postseason, that's harder. So, I mean, I'm kind of making the case against TJ Watt because they have a remote chance of making it. Pittsburgh does, but and Aaron Donald's team is going to go to the playoffs, but it's hard. Defensive player of the year. You're right. Aaron Donald is so otherworldly good that it gets to a point where if somebody rises up and has an outstanding season statistically in one, and honestly, sacks are like assists in basketball. They're a little subjective. They're not like points or rebound. Well, they are like rebounds, and they are like points. Actually, basketball's don't bring up basketball, Tom. It's
that was a great, just little look into your brain.
Tough in there. All All right, let's get off the friggin' TJ Watt.
I just think like TJ will like this again though, Tom. This is again just one last thing on this. Recency bias, I'm sure comes into play with these awards at times, and it's hard to ignore what happens at the end of the year because those games matter. But like TJ Watt just had 4 sacks in a primetime game
I know
against a god awful offense,
horrible,
just a god awful quarterback. And he might break the record now because of that game, and that might win him the award. But has he been the best defensive player all year? I don't know.
That's what I'm talking about. Okay, that's why it's like assists. It's all subjective. He just got fat. It's like scoring 50 against the Orlando Magic. All right, comeback player of the year. I got Jersey Joe Burrow.
Yeah,
Trumpet Joe. Jack-o'-lantern Joe Burrow.
He's got to win this, right? Is there anybody else that is really
Dak
in the conversation?
Dak,
but man, Dak really kind of fell off a cliff there for about a month. It feels like. Whereas Joe Burrow has been going the complete opposite direction, and it's just not stopped. The last 2 months.
Joe be closing with some really outstanding performances. Defensive rookie of the year. This is a layup.
Mm-hmm.
Easiest one out there. That's Micah Parsons, who closed on the outside a little bit for defensive player of the year too. I mean, he's unblockable. He and TJ Watt and Aaron Donald right now. Thank God we didn't have to get into the whole Trayvon Diggs conversation. Trayvon Diggs is defensive player of the year the same way JC Jackson is. The ball gets thrown to you. All you're doing is standing there and putting your hands up on half of them.
Well, I'll say now that's not fair. That's not fair. He's just putting his hands up and the thing's just sticking there.
I don't know.
I mean, he's doing a little bit of work,
like
but he
Larry
gives up
Bird
so many yards.
Steelers.
He's JC Jackson is, to me, is better than Diggs because Jackson doesn't give up the
No, you're right.
Oodles and oodles of yardage that
I know, but there is a right place, right time element to interception.
That's true.
That is on a par with, actually exceeds sacks, but there's a right place, right time element to sacks too. Not all of them. You don't get 20 sacks by, oh wow, it just ran into me. But
it might be Cameron Hayward just flushed that guy out of the pocket and right to my side, and I was able to get off a tight end's block and make a sack. Like,
yeah,
TJ Watt is a great player, but you're right. Sacks that's why I like the pressures stat. The pressure is, that's usually you beating a block or two, and Aaron Donald is just a monster when it comes to pressures.
I mean, with some of these guys, pass rushers, and Chandler Jones experienced this while he was a Patriot. I mean, he has to do 2 different things. He has to make 60 tackles on the interior, which he did as a New England Patriot, 60 tackles, while also having like 12 sacks. Meanwhile, TJ Watt or Terrell Suggs, they're just attaching a rocket to the top of your ass and letting you go. And somebody else has to stick around behind where you were and try and make sure that seam doesn't get exposed. Be that as it may. That's it. That's it for the awards. They've all been issued now. I do want to take a sideways glance towards the Miami Dolphins game, though. And Devin McCourty had a really good quote on Monday after the win over the Jacksonville Jaguars. Here's Devin.
Now we're at the point where if you don't prepare well that week and the game doesn't go well, that's it. That's the end of your season. So you want to make sure you're doing all that. And, I think for us, we got an opportunity right now this week to start that mentality, like I said last week, and prepare that way. So, when we get into the playoffs, we already know what it feels like.
Phil, we had this conversation with Trenny on Early Edition, and that calls into question, is it better that the Patriots have seen that a lax or just roll it out there attitude can result in an ass whipping, which is what the Patriots experienced in Indianapolis for the first 25 minutes? Or is it cause for concern because it's in their DNA? I think it's good because they're like, hey, here's an example. You don't play well, this is what's going to happen to you. Be urgent. But on the other hand, too, it shows you that they have the capacity to maybe play less than.
Yeah, I think you hope that it was just that they came out flat, not only in the Indy game, but then in the Buffalo game too. But it's the Buffalo game that really is alarming to me because you should have learned your lesson against Indy. So were they trying to prevent against the slow start against Buffalo? And that's how it looked, because that would be scary. So you have to hope that they've learned a lesson from that, that kind of thing won't once again sprout up when the games matter. I find McCourty's quote interesting because it sounds like they're going to treat this game like a playoff game almost.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a good thing. I think they probably should be doing that. It's always interesting to me though, because it's not a playoff game. Do you want to get away from what you've been doing all regular season? Does that, if you're treating this like a playoff game, like you might be going home if you lose, what if you do actually lose? Is that like an emotional letdown you can't come back from? Because you put so much on this one
playoff game. We lost, but we have another. It's almost like that. Oh my God, that 2019 feel was so bad after they lost to Miami. It was so bad. Just those guys trying to convince themselves that new season,
we're okay, right?
New season. Thank God that didn't happen in the playoffs. We're good to go.
Right.
So,
but that, to your point, that was more an indicator of something that was wrong with that team rather than a wake-up call.
Yeah. And that was a team in its death throes. Let's be honest. This is not a team in its death throes. Even if it loses on Sunday to Miami, even if it loses in the first round, my estimation, or maybe I'm wrong, but my estimation is this is not a team in its death throes. It has been a successful season. That's something Phil and I will discuss with Matt Castle on Thursday, whether or not this is by definition a successful 2021 season. Or is this what they were supposed to do? All right, Kyle Van Noy joined us on Quick Slants. Here's the audio from that. Enjoy. We'll talk to you guys on Thursday for this program, and you get Phil in the next Pats tomorrow. Thank you, Philly.
Check this out, Patriots rankings last year to this year. 27th overall in total offense last year. That's basically yards, passing, and rushing all added up, and then there you are. 16th this year. That's better. Scoring offense, way better. Total defense, 15th last year. 3rd this year. Scoring defense, 1st this year. That's simple. That's overall points. And as a result of all that, thank you, Dr. Lepresti, Leonard Hair Associates, call them up, get your head fixed. As a result of all that, we are happy to welcome in our friend, Kyle Van Noy. There he is. There he is. Look, I'm going to be candid. I like to tell people how the sausage gets made. We weren't sure that we had Kyle. We got him. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Good. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. I hope you had an amazing night of New Year's Eve partying.
You know what? We didn't have a bad night at all. We were at Patriot Place, kicking around for a little while. Stopped by Davio's, hung with a couple for a little while. Then we got back home. We were playing pool at midnight, in bed by 12:06.
Good for you.
Thank you, buddy. Hey, is that exactly what you guys needed over the weekend against Jacksonville?
I mean, that's exactly what the doctor ordered. Anytime you have a team that's obviously down some players, you got to take advantage, and we definitely did that.
After that game, Bill and Jacoby Myers actually spoke about, look, we needed to look in the mirror a little bit. And Bill said that. He said, look, if we needed to find focus, if that's what Jacoby said, then I defer to him. He knows what he's talking about, but he felt it was the best week of practice that you guys had in some time. Can you give us any insight at all to what might have been different in that week of practice prior to the Jacksonville game?
Just more focus, more attention to detail. I mean, I don't think there was necessarily anything different except just more of a little bit of everything. And I think it went smoothly and like it normally does. There's not many days we have bad practices, but we try our best. And, you know, we did our thing on Sunday. But now we have a tough opponent coming up down in Miami. They're going to be pissed that they lost, and I think they're going to come ready to play. Do you pay any attention at all to seeding, Kyle? You can be honest as to who you might be playing. I mean, obviously I do, but it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you got to focus on, you know, I can be a fan for just a sec, but at the end of the day, like I got to control what I got to control, and that's playing a game, getting ready for a game, and be ready to fire in all cylinders. And how we can control that is by coming out on Sunday and trying to get a win.
When you play that team, you're going to go down there to what has always been a very difficult trip for the Patriots, whether it's September or whether it's the end of the year. Is the weather a problem there? Is the field a problem? Is the flight a problem? Is that hostile Miami crowd a problem? What makes it so tough to play down there for this team?
I think you said all three of those combinations. All three can be a problem, but we're going to embrace the challenge. We're going to embrace, potentially gearing up for the playoffs. We can treat this like a playoff game, being on the road in a hostile environment. I mean, what a better way to play and get ready for the playoffs playing a divisional opponent.
I think the bus has probably left the station on this question because we're like 16 games away from it now, but going to ask it anyway. Any feeling of revenge for playing the Miami Dolphins?
Nah.
See, that bus did leave the station, didn't it?
I mean, I'm a Patriot. Like, they're out of the playoffs. Like, it is what it is.
Yeah. Someday I'm going to pry it out of you. We'll do it in the book. You and me will do the book. We'll get it out in the book.
Yeah. I think a lot of people want to know what I got to say about that.
You know what? Only because you haven't. You always talk about everything, but this is one thing. You always keep it right under your basket. Give me a peek, no peek.
Yeah, I think this one's different because it affected my family. So I think, that there's that's the situation. So when the time's right, I'll be able to spill the beans.
All right, I'll be there to pick them all up, show them to everybody, because that's what the job is. Hey, look at these beans I found. They're Kyle's. I'm going to tell you what they say. Tell me about Tua Tagovailoa. He has some good games. He has some not good games. He had a good game against you guys to open the season. What is his profile as a quarterback as you sit right now?
Accurate, gets the ball out fast, loves throwing the ball to Waddle, and he's a winner. I mean, his record is 6-5 as it is on a screen, and he's won more than he's lost. So he has that going for him.
This is going to be really easy for you, but I'm going to ask it anyway. It's the last question. I got one of those AP votes for the top players and Offensive Rookie of the Year, MVP, All Pros, all that stuff. I'm trying to figure out if I should go Jamar Chase or Mac Jones, because Jamar Chase has made a closing move on Mac, and I think he might have caught him.
So what do we mean by, are we saying like Jamar Chase has been here and here and here, right?
No, Jamar Chase was here, and then Mac went here, and Jamar went here, and now in the last two games, he's got like 400 yards receiving. And Mac had two not great games down the stretch here. They had must-win games in Cincy. It's hard. But, so you're okay if I vote for Jamar?
I'm going with my guy, Mac, because he's been like this. You know what I mean?
He's been great, huh? You've enjoyed him?
Yeah. Yeah, of course. He's my quarterback.
All right. Well, you're my guy.
But Jamar Chase is good. Don't get it twisted.
You could be seeing Jamar Chase.
I'm not being controversial or anything like that, because Buddy's been balling. He broke the all-record receiving yards for a rookie, so he's doing his thing. 18. No, that's Jonathan Taylor. 13 touchdowns for him. Listen, buddy, thank you so much. 18 yards per catch. That's where the 18 came from. Good luck this week. Good luck with your preparation. Thanks, as always, for being with us. We'll talk to you next week. Thank you. Go Pats.
Go Pats.